Okay, well, the first question is the biographical question. People who think yourself using biographical exactly give us a lowdown on the kind of intellectual influences that attracted you to the
The biographical question. Of course, since I don't believe that you can adequately reconstruct the past, much less one's own. I mean, the difficulties of reconstructing the past. Already, I would respond by putting in parentheses, right, there, under quote marks, the very notion of biographical enterprise. But as I recall, as I remember my life, how did I get into history is the question, right? How did I get into, and beyond that, how did I get into metahistory? How did I slip into metahistory? And the answer to that question is a typical socialist realist kind of, or 30s kind of scenario. Born to working class family in the southern United States, who went to Detroit, the manufacturing center during the Depression, to find work, and raised, exposed in school to made aware of class differences in a way that I wouldn't have been had I not been someone coming from a relatively integrated Southern cultural background. I was the Southerner in this Northern environment. So that plus then the urban environment, place of great racial tension. Detroit, race riots of the early 1940s occurred very near the neighborhood in which I lived. And going to public schools, going to the city university, Wayne State University, the college, where I discovered history. I mean, and it was an object of fascination for me. So why would anyone be interested in the past? Since the notion of tradition is a mystery for me as well. And so I became as interested in why people study the past and what ideological uses is made in the study of the past. As much interested in that as I was in finding out what the past was all about. And as I was governed in those days by socialist ideology, socialist convictions, and part of the kind of ideology critique enterprise in a kind of social science mode. That's the way I did history. But I studied, the subject I studied was medieval history, which would be a strange thing. But I recall that it was led into that by the figure of Max Weber as a kind of model. And Weber had begun as an ancient historian of medieval studies and that sort of thing. But I had a teacher who got me interested in the Middle Ages. How could anyone live in that kind of cultural dispensation? How could it sustain itself for 1,000 years? That was the question that drove me there. And I found out that most of the people who were studying the Middle Ages believed in it. So I recognized that I couldn't work comfortably in that as a professional historian. So I increasingly turned to the study of the ideology of history. History itself, not as an antidote to ideology and a demystification of ideology, but the way historical knowledge and information are used in the construction of ideologies. So that contrast between ideology and history, with the one serving as history serving as this ideology serving as a distorted version of what was offered in its pure form in historical reconstruction, that collapsed. That distinction collapsed. And that's what led me into this whole question of thinking about the writing and rewriting of the past and in the philosophy of history. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.